It's what lights you up. You can't deny that.
This is the Rob.
A lot of teams that have a little bit of money or have some prospects and want to move them and try to get a little bit stronger are trying to make some noise right now. So let's talk Nolan Arenado. So as I'm reading up on this, he's got a couple years left on his former deal that Colorado gave him 8 years, $260 million. They threw in $50 million to trade him to St. Louis a few years back. He has a full no-trade protection, and he has been asked by the Cardinals to give them 6 teams that he would actually sign with or go to if they are traded. And they are the Dodgers, Padres, Mets, Phillies in the National League, and the Angels and the Red Sox. And right now they're trying to get him to agree to the Astros, but he has not said yes or no to that.
Right.
So right now we're talking, I want to bring up his contract because that's another sticking point on some of these teams, whether or not the Cardinals will kick in. This year he is going to make $32 million. And then next year he's going to make $27 million. He's got deferments from the Cardinals, $20 million that starts. Let me see. I was just looking at this. They started a couple years ago and goes through 2031. It's 10 equal installments of $2 million a year. So he's also got that going on as well as the salaries. But he's also been asked if he would move off of third base, and he said yes, he would move to first base to make the trade possible. So he's looking to get out of St. Louis. St. Louis is looking to recoup some of the money left on his contract. So besides the Astros, there's those other teams that he has agreed to possibly be traded to because, again, when you sign a huge deal like 8 years, $260 million, at that point, he wanted to stay in Colorado. Colorado didn't want him to stay, and he had to waive his no-trade clause.
Very interesting, just the last couple of years of Nolan Arenado and kind of, I wouldn't say fallen, but it's just wild, the baseball story that he's had in the last couple of years. And I read that about the Astros because the Astros are almost positive Alex Bregman's not coming back to them.
Right.
And so they need to fill that hole. And what makes it very interesting to me is the Boston Red Sox because it feels like the Boston Red Sox will get Arenado if they don't get Bregman in this kind of deal. And it feels like Bregman's their first choice because of the relationship with the coach. But then in saying that, it's almost inevitable that Rafael Devers is not going to be playing third base in Boston.
Or, like I said, Arenado could go to first base.
That's
but
true.
then what do you do with Casas? So, I mean, you've got a lot of different scenarios here. I think the biggest thing is this guy's a future Hall of Famer. And I used to work with Kevin Kennedy, who managed the Rangers, managed the Red Sox, and he said, and I'll use this till I'm out of this industry, the toughest thing to do is manage old aging superstars. And this guy is an aging superstar. It's the first time in a long time Arenado didn't make the All-Star team. He didn't have the best of years. He still plays a great third base, but he went in almost 600 at-bats, down to 16 home runs, 71 driven in, still hit a good 272 in 152 games. So he's still a solid player at 33 years old. But for $32 million a year, we're talking Giancarlo Stanton. We're talking a guy that, is more of a DH than an everyday player. A lot of these teams want to skew younger, including the Cardinals. And like Goldschmidt leaving and now Arenado, their plan with those corners was to get into the playoffs, possibly, compete for a championship. Now that window has closed, they want to get rid of Nolan.
Speaking of Goldschmidt, he is on this long list that keeps growing of first basemen that are available in this free agency market. He joins Rizzo, Alonso. I'd throw Carlos Santana in there. Christian Walker in the mix as well, but I'm thinking he's not as old as those guys. All those guys I mentioned are 30 plus. Goldschmidt, just like Arenado, he had a lot better days before he got to St. Louis. I still think there's a lot of game left for him. Rizzo, I don't know, question marks. I used to love this guy, and I don't know if He's hit his last ball. I think he may be done, but probably going to make a roster somewhere. I still love Carlos Santana. I still think he is locked down, and I'm always been in love with Peter Alonso, and I think he's got a lot left in him. But out of those four guys, Rizzo, Goldschmidt, Carlos Santana, Peter Alonso, who do you want on your team, Dibs?
Well, I mean, I want Alonso, Christian Walker. Santana is a little long in the tooth at 39, but he still had a really nice year last year.
He did.
They're saying Justin Turner now is looking to play some first base at 40. But, yeah, a lot of these guys, Ty France, who was with the Reds, good numbers. Josh Bell's 32. He's out there. Your buddy G-Man Choi, 34 is out there. Our friend Rowdy Tellez is 30. A little bit round and rotund.
But I just did not know this list was that long for first base.
Oh, it's huge. It's a huge by the way, Patrick Wisdom, he signed with a Korean team. So, right. Listen, these guys are DH first basemen, especially if they're Goldschmidt's 37, Turner's 40, Solano is 37, Rizzo's 35, because you got younger guys that you want to play, and, looking at some of these guys like the Red Sox and the Rays, they're skewing younger on purpose because they feel that these younger guys, they've got them locked up for 6 years. They've got control, and you start bringing in these free agents, and you lose some of the confidence on these younger players. So I was even reading about, Bellinger possibly getting traded. They're talking about Seiya Suzuki.
Yeah.
All these teams, all of a sudden, after a couple of years where you don't win and your guys get around 30, they want to dump them. And Arenado's 33. Listen, Arenado, to me, reminds me of Scott Rowland. Great player. Great ambassador. Never going to harm you off the field. But then they start passing these guys around at the end because, they're still going to give me 20 home runs a year, play Gold Glove defense, be player coaches, but they're just not like they were when they were 25 to 28.
Speaking of old-timers, there's two Oldie Olsen pitchers that are probably going to get paid once again by another team. Justin Verlander's still out there. Max Scherzer's still out there. Do I want these guys on my team? They could help out the young guys. I hear that, but I don't know, man. I feel like I need some actual pitching.
I mean, even Eovaldi just went back to Texas on a 3-year deal. He's 35.
Yeah.
I mean, some of these better pitchers.
Scherzer's 39. Hold on, I don't know Verlander.
Verlander's 42.
42, okay.
There's a lot of free agent starters out there, like we've talked about. Corbin Burns is still out there.
Yeah.
Flaherty's still out there at 29. So Burns is 30, Flaherty's 29. I first start with those guys, but it's going to cost me $200 million. If I want a 1-year flyer, Verlander or Max, because they're pitching coaches as well as pitchers. They're the 4 days they're not starting. They're talking to the younger guys. They're getting these other guys to understand what they need to do in between starts and prepare for their starts. The last 2 years of my career, even though I was hurt in 96 and 95, I went from the White Sox and the Brewers basically into oblivion, I was asked to help the younger players. And at 30 years old, I was like, Jesus, I mean, I'm not that old, but I guess 6-7 years experience is enough to where you got a pitching coach, but you got a lot of players that are going to go to a veteran like I did when I was a younger player and ask questions and ask advice. And what do you do here? What do you do there? And in an ever-changing game like you have right now, you need Scherzer, you need Verlander. Like, how did you guys last 20 years when the game changed from – when you came in to where you are now? That's the kind of stuff that gives them more value than the guys in the first 5 years of their career. So yes, I want them on my team, but no, I'm not gonna give them 30, 40 million a year. I may give them 12 million, 10 million, and a lot of incentives in there for starts.
I saw Masahiro Tanaka just signed with the Giants of Nippon. He is a Nippon.
Nippon Ham Fighter?
No, he's an MPB player, Nippon professional baseball player for the Giants. Yomiuri Giants.
Yomiuri.
So Tanaka finding a spot. Who did you just
Walker
say?
Buehler's still out there. He's 30.
Flaherty's still out there too, speaking of Dodgers guys.
Who else we got?
Oh, there's plenty, man.
Arena. We're still looking. See, another thing is this Roki Sasaki's 23, and everybody's after him.
Linchpin. He is the linchpin. As soon as that falls, the rest of them will.
Urquidy, who came from the Astros, this guy can pitch.
Yeah.
He's 30. So I go after those guys first, and then because those guys are twos and threes, Verlander, sure, they're fives, fours and fives. They're not your aces anymore, but they're still going to be valuable to you. But since nobody pitches more than 175, 200 innings, their value is still good, because you need them come August and September. You want them to be healthy. If they get dinged up in May and June and miss a couple of starts in each month, not the worst thing in the world. So that's why I think you look at some of these guys and you're like, this guy still has value, because nobody's more important than veteran pitchers like a Michael Walker. Remember last year? Yeah. Some of these other guys come playoff time. That's when you need those guys to excel to try to win you a championship. And the Dodgers definitely needed some guys last year because they had so many injuries.
A guy who didn't have the best of 2024, but I have always loved this guy. I hear my Cubos are after him along with the Arizona Diamondbacks. Jesus Luzardo, a lot of people remember from the Marlins. This is a youngster that's got a lot of pop, man. Again, he did not have his best year as far as his career's gone, but I think a lot of people know that he can fill up some of the back end of innings. He's not going to be your guy that's going to start a bunch of games and go very long. He did get 12 starts last year out of all the games he finished, but I think this guy is more of your, like you're saying, your 4-5, your 3-4-5 guy that can really fill a gap in a rotation.
Listen, I said this the other day. You need 7 starters to go into spring training. You're going to have 8 or 9 guys in your bullpen all year. I've seen as many as 45 to 50 pitchers on some teams that have pitched in a particular season for some of these teams because of injuries and ineffectiveness and going back to the minor leagues, that kind of stuff. So you can never have enough on your roster. I'm seeing a lot of one-year deals. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of guys going back on one-year deals. We saw Bieber go back to the Indians on a one-year contract. It's more, some of these guys don't want to get into a 3-year small deal if they can sign a 1-year, $20 million deal and prove that they're still healthy, and then get another 3-year deal like Eovaldi. Can you imagine Eovaldi? He's made some really good money, won a championship in a couple different places, but recently in Texas, and now you get to go back. You probably built a house in Texas. It's a no-state tax state. And you get to play 3 more years and make some serious coin towards retirement. I mean, that guy's living his best life right now.
One guy who's trying to decide which state he wants to live in, I've heard it's between the state of Texas or the state of New York. Cody Bellinger is still a hot prospect, but I think the Cubs are asking for a lot in return as far as the trade deal goes, so that could be holding things up. Or like you're saying, there's a lot of guys that could be in front of him that might be higher priority for these teams. I think Cody Bellinger to the New York Yankees makes a lot of sense. I think Cody Bellinger to now the Houston Astros without no Kyle Tucker. You're going to be getting rid of Bregman. I think that makes a lot of sense as well. But I wouldn't be shocked if our Yankee friends go after Cody Bellinger and give up some prospects and trying to make it happen.
Listen, going to make 27.5 this year, 25 next year. And both of them have not hefty buyouts, 2.5 this year, $5 million next year. But you're taking some of that money as you get him. Listen, if you need a big bat, he's not Joey Gallo. Joey Gallo is a swing and miss guy.
Right.
Bellinger, when he's hot, is as good as anybody in the big leagues.
Yep.
And it all depends on it. Does he get along with the hitting coach? Does he listen to some possible suggestions where they go? Some of these guys are looking for someone that's going to fix them and help them, get their confidence back. So looking at maybe the Astros or looking at the Yankees, you're also looking at competition and playing in the postseason. This guy's not getting any younger, and that's probably what he's looking at. I'd like to win another championship. I'd like to be in the postseason and kind of cement my legacy, because he's had some really good years and some really bad years. It kind of reminds me of Andrew Jones at the end of his career. All of a sudden, you think that, I'm back on my way up a couple years ago when Bellinger was crushing with the Dodgers, and then he gets the huge deal with the Cubs after the one great year with the Cubs, and then you kind of take a step back. That's baseball. Baseball's not easy, man. It's not. It's not supposed to be a real easy game for your entire career. There's a lot of downtime.
Yeah, we'll see who flies off the shelves, and I think Cody Bellinger deal might be happening this week, and we'll see what happens. Like you said, there's a lot of guys in front that need to be that linchpin that finally gets pulled, and when the rest of these deals fall, I do think that Roki Sasaki is the next one, as far as everybody's waiting to see what happens there, and then they'll make their moves accordingly.
A lot of teams still looking at free agent closers and setup guys. Tanner Scott is still out there. Jeff Hoffman's name is out there. Carlos Estevez is out there. I mean, some of these guys you're looking at probably 50 to 80 million, and some of the teams are just kind of probably pausing and whether or not to sink that kind of dough into a reliever. I mean, I'm kind of looking back at when Aroldis Chapman really kind of opened the door to these huge contracts back in the day. And even when he went back to the Yankees, you remember when he went to the Cubs, wins the World Series, went back to the Yankees.
Yeah.
I mean, that now guys are doing that regularly. Looking at Bieber, looking at some of these other guys. Eovaldi goes free agent. He's like, you know what? My agent wants me to get 5 years. They offer me 3 years. I'm comfortable. I'm going back to the Texas Rangers. I think it's as much a comfort and comfortability situation as it is a money deal with these older players. And so with Bellinger, I think that guy wants to be in the postseason.
I agree. He hasn't played a significant postseason
right.
baseball game since he's left L.A.
That's right. And so a lot of guys got spoiled playing in L.A. I mean, think of Justin Turner. I mean, he's been spoiled playing with Boston, playing with L.A., Toronto. I mean, that guy, he's that's why he wants to keep coming back at 40. He's not worried about as much playing time as that excitement. That juice. Some of these guys just love that kind of juice. And so, listen, I think the Yankees are in a good position right now. You didn't drop $700 million. Max Fried was a phenomenal get.
Yeah.
And I think that they were after Fried a lot more than they were after Soto. And once they probably figured Soto's not coming back, like you said about Bregman, that's when you go to Plan B or Plan C. I mean, I'm looking. Chaim Bloom landed a 5-year deal with the Cardinals as president of baseball operations. So there's other organizations other than Tampa and Boston that think that guy's got some serious knowledge. So I like going in and seeing who some of these GMs and presidents are of some of these organizations, and that just shows you now how the Cardinals are going in a different direction
and their relationships. I mean, I think he has an AL East relationship top to bottom. So to bring that to the Midwest and what St. Louis, there's not many guys that go to St. Louis that are from these other markets. Usually it's the guys that are coming from Colorado, Arizona, Pittsburgh. It's not LA, it's not New York. Maybe Chaim Bloom brings that kind of, I don't know, East Coast AL East relationships and those connections. Because when you look at, I always say this in the NFL, man, look at where they're coming from and just watch that over the years. You have certain relationships with certain teams where deals consistently get done just because they're familiar with who's making the deal.
We going to do the Coach Kirk's interview you did?
No, we got who we had coming up.
All right, who we had coming up next on the Rob Dibble Show with Ben Darnell in your afternoon drive. Kirk Kaplan on the ones and twos. John Ashmead's on our YouTube video. We'll be right back with all of our picks from the weekend.
31 southbound, the brakes are